Our top story tonight is about Ukraine. After months of struggling to halt the Russian aggression on the battlefield, there seems to be some good news on the horizon for the war-torn country. Its troops have just successfully carried out one of its most serious attacks on Russian territory since the war started in 2022. In the last 48 hours, hundreds of Ukrainian troops have rolled into western Russia. You heard that right. After defending its territory for the last 2.5 years, Ukrainian troops have entered Russia. And as a result, Russia has declared a state of emergency and evacuated several thousand civilians from border regions. It has been 3 days of intense fighting. But the question is, what prompted this latest offensive by Ukraine? Is Ukraine looking to occupy the Russian territory? How did Ukraine go from defending its land from invading Russian forces to actually sending hundreds of soldiers into Russia itself? Wouldn't that be counterintuitive? Or is it part of a plan? Is the Kursk raid by Ukraine just a diversion for something bigger and far worse? Has the Kursk raid just given Ukraine a new bargaining chip for future negotiations? Let me explain all of this to you. The Ukrainian force, which the Russians said, included about 300 troops, 11 tanks, and 20 armored vehicles, charged into the Kursk region and appears to have captured a number of settlements around the village of Sudza, that is roughly 8 miles from the border. Now, one of Ukraine's biggest battlefield issues is manpower. We've been telling you about this. Russia has more soldiers and is inching closer to the eastern Ukrainian town of Pokrovsk. Now, as a result of Ukraine's raid on Kursk, Russia has been forced to redeploy some troops there from the front line in eastern Ukraine. If you look at the official reports, there were significantly fewer Russian glide bombs dropped in the Donetsk area. You know what that means? It means the aircraft which carry them are now elsewhere in Russia. So again, is Ukraine looking to occupy Russian territory? It's unlikely, but if the plan was pulling in Russian forces, Ukraine has very quickly succeeded.
Everyone can see that the Ukrainian army knows how to surprise and knows how to achieve results. This is demonstrated by the battlefield, where our soldiers not only withstood the overwhelming force of the occupiers, but also are destroying it in the way necessary to protect Ukraine, our state, and independence.
But just to be clear here, Ukraine has carried out similar incursions in the past. But this would be the first time that regular Ukrainian forces have been used in this kind of a way. There is a lot more chatter across the border. Russian military channels were quick to report the ground assault by Ukraine involving hundreds of troops and several rocket and drone attacks. Local officials were also swift in announcing casualties and evacuations. Like I said, a state of emergency was declared. Russia's defense ministry even admitted that troops were being redeployed in the direction of Sudza, a town in Kursk. And what's more, Russian President Vladimir Putin was publicly briefed by his security chiefs, with his foreign ministry spokesperson calling the attack barbaric and terrorist, quote unquote. This Russian response suggests that Moscow got blindsided by the Ukrainian forces. You see, until yesterday, it was Russia that had been steadily capturing Ukrainian territory. Russia was also outnumbering the Ukrainian forces. It is not surprising then that Russia would be caught surprised by the Ukrainian raid. The Kursk assault is already being presented by Moscow as proof of why Russia should continue its war against Ukraine, a war that is still described as defensive. As for what Ukraine hopes to achieve from this, on Thursday, 2 days after the raid on Kursk, Ukraine broke its silence on its objective.
They have a war that gradually moves deeper into the Russian Federation. Will it scare them? Yes. Do they react to something else except fear? No. We must finally understand this. The Russian Federation perceives any compromise as your weakness and readiness to kneel before them. It is obvious.
Ukrainian presidential advisor Mykhailo Podolyak said that any possible Ukrainian operations in Russian border regions will improve Ukraine's position in future peace talks with Moscow. So that basically is the objective of Ukraine's Kursk raid, it seems. By launching cross-border attack on Kursk, Ukraine seems to have got itself a new bargaining chip in the upcoming peace talks. That is, if Ukraine manages to claim and keep Kursk. It may use it as a bargaining chip in talks with Russia, very crucial. In fact, in his briefing, Podolyak said that Ukraine must enter any talks with Russia from a position of strength. Ukraine has said it aims to invite a Russian representative to the upcoming Second Peace Summit. Will the offensive have an impact on the possible negotiations between Ukraine and Russia? That remains to be seen. The thing is, the prospect of peace talks has been raised multiple times since the war started, but both sides have specified few conditions which they consider non-negotiable. Russia says that Ukraine must accept the September 2022 annexation of 4 of its regions. In June this year, Putin also said that Ukraine must renounce any plans to join the NATO. Meanwhile, Ukraine has said that any peace deal must invalidate the September 2022 annexations and that the Crimean Peninsula must once again be considered part of Ukraine. With both sides standing firm on their stand, the real question is, can Ukraine's latest move actually change the reality on the ground? Or is it just a pipe dream? We will have to wait and watch. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.